Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your Baltimore Sports Podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over the official game preview between the Ravens and the Steelers for the game on Sunday. The official injury reports are out. Everything is set in stone for the game, so we are going to be doing the game preview a little bit earlier than we usually do. Recording this Friday night, early Saturday morning, whichever way you want to see it. But Ravens Steelers, obviously we understand the history between these two teams. We understand that this is one of the more historic rivalries in the NFL and in NFL history, to be honest with you. Obviously when you think about like great rivalries in the NFL, you think of like Packers-Bears is one that comes to mind, obviously, that a lot of people think about. And Ravens-Steelers, I don't want to call it underrated, but I feel like it doesn't really get the respect that it deserves because it has been a incredible rivalry, especially over like the early 2000s, early 2010s and stuff like that, even up until now, even in like the Lamar era and whatever era Pittsburgh is in for quarterback, because they obviously have had several different quarterbacks over the last few years. But it is going to be Aaron Rodgers for the Steelers, obviously Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. We got the official injury report throughout the entire week. We have all the different injury reports when everyone practiced. The injury report wasn't very full this week. We were pretty much healthy throughout the whole week. There was a little bit of a Lamar Jackson scare when he didn't practice on Thursday, but he did return to practice today. He's going to be good to go. I say he's going to be good to go, but obviously we understand that he is dealing with injury, so we've kind of just been having to deal with watching that, but hopefully he is getting healthier and healthier as the week goes on, because, again, as I talked about in the last episode, the most ideal, best-case scenario situation is that Lamar Jackson gets healthier as the season goes on, gets back to being the player that we know that he is, and then the Ravens can go on a really good run to end the season, make the playoffs, and then whatever happens once we get there. But obviously the Ravens have dug themselves a hole at 6-6 right now. They were at 1-5. They are currently at 6-6. So they have saved their season, but there is still two incredibly important games, both games against the Steelers. We play them obviously on Sunday and then in Week 18 in the last week of the season. So if the Ravens can get a win tomorrow or get a win on Sunday, it would be incredibly important and such a big win for this team heading into the rest of the year, for the final 4 games of the season. If they can win this game, they'll have a 1-game lead over the Steelers moving forward, and then from there you kind of officially control your own destiny with your wins you have up ahead. And then obviously Week 18 will happen, but we'll get there whenever we get there. We'll talk about it whenever we get there. But we also have some more Ravens news that we're going to go over, because I wasn't able to go over it whenever it happened a couple days ago, and that is that Mark Andrews has officially been extended by the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to give my thoughts on it, and I'm going to be going over that in just 1 second. A little spoiler warning, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'll go over that in just a second, but we're going to be going over the game preview. Going to be going over the injury report, obviously, of what happened throughout the week leading up to it. Not too much to go over, not really too big of an injury report this week. And then right now we're going to be going over the Mark Andrews extension. So I'm just going to give my opinions on that right now. So going over here and looking here at this Mark Andrews extension, obviously it's a big deal. He is a key player on the Baltimore Ravens. Some people say that he's not really a key player. Some people will say that he is. I'm going to say that he is, especially now he's been a key part of this offense for really the past 7-8 years since Lamar Jackson's been on this team. He has consistently been a target for him. He's had extremely good chemistry with him throughout his career. And, I've said this before, he is legitimately the only offensive weapon that has stayed on the Baltimore Ravens for Lamar. He's been the only pass catcher Lamar's had throughout his entire tenure with the Ravens. So, obviously getting him back is cool. It was a 3-year, $39.3 million extension. I think it's like $23 or $24 million guaranteed. So obviously a pretty hefty extension for a tight end where, if you look at their current numbers on the season, does not kind of project out to this contract extension. But obviously when it comes to contracts and deals in the NFL, most of the time it is overpays, and that comes with baseball, that comes with basketball, that comes with football. you can never really expect like a good deal on some stuff sometimes, just because of the way that the market is, just the way that the sports world is in general with that. But my initial thoughts on this extension are, I'm not a fan. I love Mark Andrews to death as a player. He's an incredible human being. Obviously, we've seen him do so many, great things for the Ravens community, and all the community work and all that stuff. He's an all-time Raven, as we know. He is technically the Triple Crown. He's the all-time receiving touchdowns leader, all-time receiving yards leader, and all-time receptions leader. So if you want to talk about some of the greatest Ravens in history, Mark Andrews is definitely on that list. Obviously, when you look at some of the other Ravens in the past that have kind of held those records, a lot of them have been a part of some of the Super Bowl teams, whether that was in 2001 or whether that was in 2013. Whichever one it was, the Ravens have had some legendary and historic players play for their franchise. But when it comes to like the pass catchers and the receivers, there really has been a ton of legendary receivers for the Ravens. Like, some franchises have a guy that you can just like say the name of the franchise and like a receiver will instantly come in mind. Like obviously with the Minnesota Vikings, they had Randy Moss, and now they have Justin Jefferson. With the Bengals, obviously they currently have Jamar Chase. With the 49ers, you have Jerry Rice. With the Lions, you have, Calvin Johnson. Like, there's so many great all-time receivers that play for teams you kind of think of, and the Ravens, throughout their history, haven't really had that. But Mark Andrews is the Triple Crown guy for the all-time Ravens stats, and he's an incredible player. Obviously, he's not really in his prime right now, but we did see him in his prime really in those like 2021, 2022 years. He was a demon for the Ravens, especially when Lamar Jackson wasn't actually out there when he was hurt. Even before he got hurt, like he was still having an incredible year that year. But my initial thoughts on the extension is that I'm not a big fan of it. Again, I love Mark Andrews as a player, love him as a person, love what he's done for the franchise's history. Obviously, a lot of a lot of people will point to his January stats and point to his postseason stats, and his postseason stats are pretty horrendous. 0 touchdowns across, I think, 8 postseason games played. Has like 300 yards or something like that. Really bad postseason stats for Mark Andrews, but we've seen him do really good throughout the regular season. And again, I'm not a fan of this signing at all. And it's not because it's Mark Andrews. It's really because you had another tight end in your tight end room who is 5 years younger than Mark Andrews and has produced in the playoffs over the past couple of years that we've seen him in the playoffs. And someone who has extremely good chemistry with Lamar Jackson. And that is Isaiah Likely. And Isaiah Likely, there was rumors that he was going to get a contract extension during training camp. And it was fully expected that the Ravens were going to choose Isaiah over Mark because Mark Andrews was literally in trade deadline talks this past deadline. And he was in trade talks throughout the offseason leading up to the season that we went over. So this is a little bit confusing to me. I understand Isaiah Likely's numbers on the season haven't been great. I do think a part of that does have to do with the fact that he is returning from a foot injury and foot surgery that happened over the offseason. And I do think that it wasn't rushed, but I do think that it does affect his play early on. Obviously, in this past game against the, if we look at the past game against the Bengals where he had that fumble at the goal line, obviously that wasn't great. But yeah, I'm just a little confused on why they picked Mark Andrews over Isaiah Likely, because Mark Andrews, by the time that this contract ends, he's gonna be 30. He's gonna be a 33-year-old tight end, and Isaiah Likely is gonna probably be in the middle of his prime at 27, 28, 29 years old, lighting up the league. Because I've always said this about Isaiah Likely. I think if you put Isaiah Likely in a full, true tight end one role, I think he can be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I think he's an incredibly, incredibly talented player. I think he's an amazing, very underrated blocker. And to see Isaiah Likely not get paid and not get the extension is a little bit kind of confusing. I thought it was kind of a no-brainer to go with Isaiah Likely, especially after hearing all the stuff that we heard. But lo and behold, Mark Andrews is the extended tight end, and it looks like the Ravens may have made their choice on their tight end for the foreseeable future. Now, with Isaiah Likely, he is set to become a free agent this season, and I do think that this extension kind of makes it to where Isaiah Likely is going to have to go test the market because obviously it is possible. Like, there is a world and there is a scenario where the Ravens do pay both tight ends and they value both of these guys equally, and it's like a tight end 1A, 1B type situation, which would be cool. But the Ravens have other needs that they need to go and do. So them extending Mark Andrews and kind of having Isaiah Likely on the fence like that and most likely probably going to end up leaving this offseason really does suck. It is a little bit confusing. If they do end up signing both tight ends, then obviously it would make a little bit more sense. But at the same time, they have to go spend their money and go get other extensions done, like Tyler Linderbaum, and even a Lamar Jackson extension. So if they go out there and re-sign both tight ends, obviously that would be great for the offense and stuff, but a very bad use of money to go re-sign 2 tight ends to a decent deal. Like, Isaiah Likely is going to get a decent deal, whether it's us re-signing him or whether it's another team. I will say there is another possibility that we franchise tag Isaiah Likely, but at the same time, I just don't really see the point in that. I would rather get extensions done for the future and kind of have stuff set for the future instead of like this 1 year type of situation. But Isaiah Likely is set to become a free agent this offseason. It really sucks seeing Mark Andrews get paid. Obviously, this has nothing to do with Mark Andrews. There's nothing, against him. But for the future of the Ravens, you would think that they would go with the younger and, in my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion as well, the more talented tight end. Like, I can genuinely sit here and say that I think that Isaiah Likely is a more talented tight end than Mark Andrews, I'd say. I think that the chemistry with Lamar Jackson obviously does play a role in this. I think that him having that chemistry with Lamar Jackson over the years that they've been here together, I do think that that plays a role in this. But I really just do, like, Isaiah Likely and Lamar also have a great chemistry, and I would have just loved to see Isaiah Likely be in that tight end 1 role. We'll see what ends up happening this offseason. We'll see if Isaiah Likely gets extended and we have 2 tight ends. But then that's just a bad use of money because you have to go spend it on other things that are more important, like fixing up your offensive line so your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, doesn't get killed like he's been all season long and dealing with injuries and leading to where we are right now. So just a bad use of money, in my opinion, from Eric DeCosta. I really just don't understand this deal. Maybe if it was cheaper, I'd be fine with it, but we're paying him a decent amount of money here in this contract. So he's among one of the higher paid tight ends in the NFL, and he's like the past couple of years, he's been some of the worst seasons of his career. So especially this year has not been great from him. People will point to the drop in the playoff game and the fumble in the playoff game against the Bills last year, which obviously still kind of sits in the back of a lot of Ravens fans' heads, but a very questionable contract extension for the Ravens. It's cool. I love Mark Andrews. I guess if you put Mark Andrews in that tight end 1 role, that pure tight end 1 role again, maybe he'll go back to being the tight end that we know that he is. But I don't know, man. I kind of would have just preferred Isaiah Likely over this, to be real with you. I think that Isaiah is a better route runner, and I do think that Isaiah Likely is a better blocker, and he's younger. So you can argue, like, Mark Andrews is a red zone threat for Lamar Jackson, of course, but just a little bit confused by this. Not the biggest fan in the world, but we'll see how it plays out, obviously, over the next few years, and we'll obviously see what happens with Isaiah Likely and what we do this upcoming offseason. So the next thing that I want to go over is the injury report for this week. The injury report for Steelers week. There's not really many more important weeks in the NFL for the Ravens than a Steelers week. Ravens-Steelers, an historic matchup. And when it comes to Ravens-Steelers, obviously both franchises, both fan bases are locked for the matchups. You take it a little extra seriously. It's a divisional rival. And not only is it a division rival, but you look at the stakes of this game with both teams' record and how both teams' season has gone. The Steelers are currently sitting at 6-6. The Ravens are currently sitting at 6-6. So this game is extremely, extremely important for both teams to win. The winner will be 7-6, and the loser will be 6-7. So, a very important game for both teams, obviously, and the playoff chances will rise dramatically or fall dramatically based on the outcome of the game. But going over the injury report, there was, some players on it throughout the week, but when it came to, like, the game status, we are looking pretty good for the game. But Rashad Bateman dealing with that high ankle sprain that we know that he was dealing with, the past few weeks. He did end up coming back against the Bengals, literally went ghost, didn't even do anything in that game. Lamar Jackson didn't even really target him either. But Rashad Bateman, full participant on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. We got a full practice on Friday. He's good to go for the game on Sunday. Lamar Jackson, obviously the man of the hour, the man that everyone talks about his practices for a very good reason, because you look at the way that Lamar Jackson has played this season and you kind of tie it back to the injuries and that, he didn't start playing like this until after he came back from injury, and he's been missing practice with a different, injury every single week, and it's been a random thing, dealing with an ankle and a toe and a foot and a knee soreness and all that stuff. So Lamar Jackson this week was, on the injury report like he's been for the past God knows how long. But he was dealing with the same ankle injury again. He was limited on Wednesday. Then he was a DNP on Thursday. So that was very confusing, very random. That was very worrisome. But he did get a full practice in on Friday, and he is going to be good to go for the game on Sunday. So Lamar Jackson will be out there. And hopefully, just like I've said over the past few weeks, hopefully he can get back to being the player that we know that he is. Hopefully he can just stay more calm in the pocket, and hopefully he can just, deliver the throws, make the strikes, and, extend the plays, and just be Lamar. Like, he just has to go out there and be Lamar Jackson like we know that he is. We've seen this so many times. We don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to sit here and nitpick of things that he's, doing wrong. He's just not playing like Lamar Jackson, and it's showing, over a 3-week sample size, really, especially of him not playing his best football. You can really look at these 3 games and really pinpoint to how he's just not really playing the way that he is supposed to. Really, you can look at like a 4-week span, including that Vikings game as well. So, obviously with Lamar Jackson, it hasn't been great for him, but hopefully week by week he does get better, and hopefully he can go out here against the Steelers defense and really just go out there and light it up and just show why he is who he is. He was earlier on Twitter this week responding to a bunch of hate. People, in Twitter comments, people saying all this stuff, saying he's washed, saying that, all different stuff about him. Is Lamar Jackson washed? No. You'd have to be an absolute idiot to think that Lamar Jackson just all of a sudden is now one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, because that's what he's been performing like. He's been performing like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL from a week-to-week standpoint. And if you just think that he suddenly is like this is who he is now, you're insane. And if this continues for the rest of this year and into next season, then I'll eat my words with sorrow and anger and pain if that's really the case. But guys, Lamar's a professional. He's a 2-time MVP. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. People will still consider him one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. A little 3-game, 4-game skid of just not being the guy that we know that he is not going to change that. We've seen this before with superstar quarterbacks where sometimes they just don't look like themselves. And Lamar Jackson is obviously dealing with injuries this season. Like, if you go back to the very beginning of the season, like if you go back to the first 3 weeks of the season, he was looking like the MVP that we all knew that he was. He carried it over straight from 2024 to 2025, dealt with the injury. He was out for 3 weeks, conflicting whether he's going to come back or not. Obviously, all this practice report stuff, very odd situation. And he's been dealing with like a different injury every single week, it seems, and this all stems from how awful the offensive line has been for him, and he's getting hit more than he ever has in his career, and it kind of just shows in the way that he's playing right now and just obviously the injuries. But hopefully he can get back to being the player that we know, and hopefully he can just get back to being Lamar Jackson, like just go back to being Lamar Jackson that we know that he is, and we'll see what happens on Sunday against Pittsburgh, but he is going to be out there, which is great. Travis Jones didn't practice because of a personal issue on Wednesday, was a DNP on Thursday, was a full participant on Friday, so Travis Jones is going to be out there. That's going to be great. He's been one of the more underrated defensive tackles in football, and he's been stepping up in a big way for Madubuike. Obviously, our defensive line and our edge rushers and our pressure to the quarterback has been awful this season. Our trenches in general, offensive line, defensive line, the trenches have been horrible, but Travis Jones has done a pretty solid job. Tavius Robinson is going to be out this game. Ronnie Stanley practiced Wednesday, Thursday, rested Friday. He's going to be good to go. We've seen this before with him. Devontae Walker got in a full, limited and full practice. He's going to be good. Darius Washington, who got his practice window activated, he was limited in 2 games this year, or 2 practices this week, and a full participant in practice on Friday. So Darius Washington is out this game just because they want to get him more reps, but it is very possible that we do see Darius Washington come back here in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be a big boost. Obviously, I don't think he's going to play a ton of snaps with Alohi Gilman and Kyle Hamilton out there, but Darius Washington can make a lot of big plays, and he fights extremely, extremely hard. So it's good to see him back out there and back out there at practice. And then Nate Wiggins, who was dealing with a foot injury in the game against the Bengals, and he was limping off the field, and it looked really bad. And Nate Wiggins has been balling out this series, made a lot of great individual plays, and he is, and I can say this with confidence, he is the best corner on this team. Marlon Humphrey has definitely stepped down in that role, and Nate Wiggins is the cornerback for the future. We've seen him make incredible plays on star receivers, and he still is extremely, extremely young. So Nate Wiggins was dealing with that foot injury in the Cincinnati game, and it was a little bit scary. It was a little bit scary to see him limping off, obviously, because this is like the worst time of the year to get injured because of how important and must-win these games are over the next month. But Nate Wiggins was limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, and was a full participant on Friday, and he is good to go for the game on Sunday, which is kind of crazy because I kind of expected him to miss a couple of weeks, but Nate Wiggins is a fighter. Shout out to bro. Shout out to him. He's going to be out there, and it's very, very glad to see him out there because he is so valuable to this defense. But for the injury report, no Tavius Robinson, no Darius Washington, but everyone else is good to go. We're pretty much fully healthy and back at it again, and hopefully they can go out there and get this win because they are really going to need it. And lastly, we are going to be going over the game preview for this game on Sunday. Not going to go into too much detail because, again, point blank period, it's a simple task for this Ravens team, and that is to go out there and win no matter what. Ravens-Steelers is obviously a very, very big rivalry. Both teams have had their struggles throughout the season. The Steelers started off the season good. They've kind of been collapsing here recently going into this game. The Ravens started off the season horrible. They went on that 5-game win streak. Not all those wins were very convincing. And then obviously they just dropped their last game against Cincinnati, where they turned the ball over 5 times in a horrendous game where you just got to put it beside you, put it past you and just move forward with the season because every single game moving forward is going to be an absolute must-win game. And both games against Pittsburgh are going to be extra must-win games. Because obviously this is who we're competing with to win the division. So Steelers-Ravens, obviously going to be a physical bout, just like it's always been in the Lamar Jackson era. Every single time it's Lamar versus the Steelers. Mike Tomlin obviously knows Lamar Jackson better than I think really any coach in the NFL probably does, just because he's had to play against them obviously a lot throughout his career. We played them 3 times last season, obviously twice in the regular season, and then we played them in the playoffs where we sent they ass home. But last season, the Ravens won the season series 2-1, including that playoff game. But this year, we play the Steelers this week, play them in Week 18, and the Week 18 game very well might be the game that decides who goes to the playoffs and whose season ends. So, going to be very interesting, but whoever wins this game is going to take a 1-game lead over their opponent. So if the Steelers win, they're going to be 7-6, and they're going to have a 1-game lead over the Ravens in the division. And then if they're going to have a 1-game lead. And then if the Ravens win, obviously vice versa, same thing there. So Ravens must-win game for them. I cannot stress enough how much of a must-win this is for the Ravens. Both quarterbacks on both teams are dealing with their own injuries. Lamar Jackson dealing with these injuries, playing through them, obviously. Not as bad, I think, as what Aaron Rodgers is dealing with right now. Aaron Rodgers dealing with that, it was like a wrist sprain or something with his wrist, and it really did affect him in that Buffalo game, and he definitely is fighting through injury, but he is expected to play on Sunday for the Steelers. So Lamar versus Aaron Rodgers, and And the biggest thing for the Ravens and the biggest thing that they need to do in this game in general, 100%, is get to the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is, 41, 42 years old. He cannot move in the pocket. The Ravens offense has been the Ravens defense has been very, very, very bad at getting to the quarterback, getting pressure. They've been horrible. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of pressure rates. And, it's been bad. Obviously, it's been a big reason why the Ravens season has gone the way that it is. But the Ravens defensive line obviously is filled up with no Madubuike, which sucks. We've gone over that multiple times. But the Steelers' offensive line is not a great offensive line. They do collapse quite often. They're not really considered a great offensive line. They're better than the Ravens, I'll tell you that. But the Steelers' offensive line is not great. The Ravens' defensive line is not great. So it's really just going to come down to whoever breaks first. And if the Ravens can get constant pressure on Aaron Rodgers and really put him in an uncomfortable situation, I really do think that the Ravens are going to have a lot of success in this game. When you look at the Steelers pass catchers, they got obviously DK Metcalf as their wide receiver 1. They got a couple of really good tight ends out there in Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith. They got Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. They got some receivers out there. Obviously, look at the running backs. Jalen Warren's having a really good year. They also got Kenneth Gainwell, who they use a lot as a receiver. So their offense by no means is any sort of explosive offense, because it's not. It's not an explosive offense. You have Aaron Rodgers out there who has had some good moments this year, but not really great moments as well. And I think if you can just get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, if you can really just put him in an uncomfortable situation, then I do think that the Ravens are going to have a good chance to win this game on the defensive side. But when it comes to the Ravens offense, the biggest thing, and I'll say it every single week because it is the truth, you got to get Derrick Henry going early in this game. If you go back and look at the Cincinnati game, Derrick Henry got going early, and then they just stopped using him because who knows, because of the score, I guess, but at the same time, that didn't really matter. So get Derrick Henry going early. I'm sure he's going to be playing angry. The Steelers' defense is very, very weird sometimes this season. Obviously, as a whole, they're considered to be one of the better defenses in the NFL. They got TJ Watt out there, who was dealing with a little bit of an injury throughout the week. I'm not sure if he's going to play. But the Steelers defense, they got some guys out there. They got some really good players. TJ Watt is obviously an incredible player. And I'm very, very, very scared to play TJ if he does play, because we saw what Myles Garrett did against the Ravens offensive line. TJ Watt is going to do something very similar. So when it comes to the Ravens offense, protecting Lamar Jackson at all times is the biggest thing. Protecting Lamar Jackson, and on the defensive side, getting to the quarterback. It's the trenches. It all stems from the trenches. The trenches are a little seed that you plant into the ground, and it grows out into a bunch of different branches, and it leads to a bunch of different things. And that is what this Ravens season is really revolved around, is the trenches being very, very bad throughout the season. So protecting Lamar Jackson is the biggest thing, giving him time to do what he needs to do, giving him time to be Lamar, find the plays downfield, letting the plays develop, and also just blocking for the running game as well, so Derrick Henry can get past that initial phase, and then obviously he can do the rest of the work and get some blocks downfield and stuff like that. So for the most part, when it comes to Derrick Henry and the run blocking, I trust the blocks downfield. I just do not trust the initial blocks to get past the line of scrimmage, because that's where Derrick Henry's gotten hit a lot this season, is at the line of scrimmage. We've seen some negative plays, some 0-yard plays, 1-yard plays, whatever it is. So if they can just get Derrick Henry past the line of scrimmage, he can obviously do the rest. That's the difference between great running backs and good running backs, and average running backs is what they're able to do on that second level, and obviously their vision in general. So Ravens offensive line, and also I would really like to see in this game both tight ends get utilized. That's one, but I really do want to see Rashad Bateman get utilized. The Steelers' pass defense is literally ranked 32 of 32 in the NFL. They have one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And I would love for Lamar Jackson to take advantage of that, but The only way that he takes advantage of that is if he gets protection up front. So if they can protect Lamar, if they can get the play to develop, one of the receiving options, whether it's Bateman, whether it's Zay, whether it's Hopkins, whether it's Walker, whether it's any of the 2 tight ends, someone is bound to get open if you can just get the protection that you need because of how bad this pass defense has been. So pick apart that pass defense, pick apart the corners, pick apart the safeties, pick apart the secondary in this game. Target their weakness, which is obviously the pass defense. The run defense isn't great either, so hopefully Derrick Henry can get going as well. But I really do expect that this Ravens offense to have a big bounce back week. And also, one more thing, hold on to the damn football. Do not fumble. Do not turn it over. I want to see 0 turnovers in this game for the Ravens. They just had 5 against the Bengals defense. They need to, obviously ball control, ball security was a huge point of emphasis throughout the week. We heard John Harbaugh say that. We heard Tom Monken say that. Ball control and ball security is the number one thing alongside the offensive line, alongside getting the receivers open downfield, alongside picking apart that secondary. And if all just goes well, the Ravens are, I think, like 6 or 6.5 point favorites in this game. So they are decent favorites in this game. The Steelers have been kind of spiraling down, but the Ravens still have the talent, still have the players to go out there and be great. They just have to go execute when it matters. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate it so much. Make sure to click the link in the bio to check out the Twitter and the Instagram. I post all the time on Twitter, any sort of Ravens updates, any sort of Orioles updates. Obviously, when it comes to the Orioles, we are currently in the middle of free agency right now, so it's about to get really, really, really hot in free agency, I think. Lots of expectations for the Orioles. They made that Brian Helsley move. They made the Taylor Ward trade. So they've done a couple of big moves already, but the best is yet to come, according to a lot of different sources and reporters and people who are into all of this stuff when it comes to Orioles free agency. Because at the end of the day, sometimes fans don't really know what's going on, so you got to get stuff from reporters and everything like that. So when it comes to the Orioles, very big things coming up. I do think that the draft lottery is actually in a couple of days, so we're going to be giving our reaction to that. The Orioles have a pretty good chance of getting the first pick, so we'll see what happens there. Some exciting times for the Orioles coming up. I'm so excited to see what they do here over the next few weeks to a month or whatever. Going to be very exciting, so make sure to give those a follow. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you guys on Sunday for the official post-game recap video going over the Ravens and Steelers game. Hopefully the Ravens can pull out the win. Must win game. I'll say it loud and clear. This is a must-win game for the Ravens. If they can win, I really, really, really like their playoff chances moving forward. But if they lose, it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough, time moving forward. And to be honest, if they lose, that might be it. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'll see you guys on Sunday after the game. You have a great Steelers night, great Steelers day. Whenever you're listening to this, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you all for so much support. The rest of the season is obviously going to be great, but next year we're coming even harder when it comes to this stuff. So again, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. You have a great Steelers day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see you later. Peace out.